All right, everybody, welcome to the Mack Flash 5. My name is François, and I'll be your host, and we'll all be your hosts all together. It's just a force of habit. I don't know how to not start a show anymore at this point. You know what I mean? Welcome to the Mack Flash 5, where we discuss our top 5 movies in one given category. This week, top 5 true story movies, quote unquote. It could have been an actual true story. It could have been based on a true story. It could have how far has it been taken? We'll have to see. And knowing these guys,
it kept me up at night.
Yeah, it's a good chance. We're gonna get it started right away with number 5. Matthew, what's your number 5 top 5 true story movie?
My number 5 is only number 5 because I've only seen it twice. The first time I watched it, it took me like 2.5 days to watch because of the subject matter. It's a pretty hard watch. Schindler's List is number 5 for me. It's a movie about the Holocaust. Steven Spielberg's masterpiece. Epic. It's really long. And like I said, the first time I watched it, it took me 2.5 days to watch because I was watching it through my fingers. I mean, but being a Spielberg completist, I really needed to see it. I think everyone needs to see it. And my list will get a little bit lighter as we go on. But yeah, to start off on a down note, Schindler's List is my number 5.
All right. It's one of those things where I was like, someone's gonna have it. Someone's gonna have it.
I saw it in high school, and I was like, great, glad I did. I would never watch it a second time. It's that one where there's a few select movies, like 12 Years a Slave and stuff, where you're like, saw it once, awesome, fantastic, deserves the acclaim. I'm never gonna watch it again. I
actually saw it on a school trip in high school. They took us to see it in the theater, and as a teen, watching it in the theater with a bunch of my school classmates and my friends was probably not great because I'm sitting there crying my eyes out, and we're like, "Oh, look at this guy crying," and I'm like, "Shut up, man! Like,
this guy's got emotions.
This is for real. This is for real."
He's not a robot.
My connection to that film. I mean, I love that movie. I've seen it a few times, but I mean, Matt will appreciate my connection to that film is Seinfeld. It's Newman seeing Jerry making out in the back of the theater during Schindler's List, and I think maybe I heard that before I saw the film. So then I was like, "Oh, I got to go see this film now. What is this film that they shouldn't be making out in the theater during?"
Let's see how wrong it is.
Yeah, that's not right at all.
And it was and stories have been told about how Steven Spielberg, after a day of shooting, would be so miserable and down and depressed. He would have to pop in tapes of Seinfeld to cheer himself up.
What?
I
didn't know that.
Is so funny. Full circle.
You know, one of my favorite Hollywood tidbits. This is the last little bit of that. I am obsessed with the fact that Spielberg did Jurassic and that in the same year. Sometimes I'll think it'd be like he did both of those movies 6 months apart. That is unbelievable.
Crazy.
Directors do a movie every 3 years. He did those 2 movies in the same year.
Those 2. That's
insane. He shot Jurassic Park earlier. He was doing, but since the special effects of Jurassic Park were brand new, they took so long to create. He was able to direct Schindler's List and edit Jurassic Park at the same time. And he won. And that year, Schindler's List won Best Picture. He and Steven Spielberg won Best Director, which I think, and it came to me a few days ago. Since both those movies were huge critical acclaim and huge box office, he clearly got Best Director for both movies. It's like, this is your year. Here you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's insane. And that's his number 5. Let's take a look.
Now wait, number 4 isn't Jurassic Park, right? Because I know dinosaurs were here.
True story.
Dinosaurs did exist, and we can find his handsome. It's not based on a true story yet.
Yeah, exactly.
It's coming.
Yeah. We're getting there. All right, AB, what do you got for us in your number 5?
Okay, so my 5 are pretty much interchangeable as far as order. I kind of put them in order, especially this one. I put this number 5 because I know it's most likely going to be on other people's list, and I wanted to get to it before they did. It is from 2007, directed by David Fincher. The movie is Zodiac.
That's your 5. Wow. I sometimes from behind, I thought that would be your 1. I'm shook. I thought that
Wow.
was
Probably. So I'm saying it could be. It could be. It could be. I just wanted to beat you guys to the punch. So, Zodiac directed thing, and it's based on this book, and another book by Robert Graysmith, who's played by Jake Gyllenhaal in the movie. It also has Robert Downey Jr. and Mark Ruffalo as the two other characters, the main characters. And it's about the Zodiac killer who killed a bunch of people in the 60s and into the 70s, and 3 guys that get wrapped up in the case. All 3 from kind of different worlds. One is a cartoonist, one is a writer, and the other is a detective. And it really gets into the case, it gets in depth in the case. The movie's like almost 3 hours long, but it is exciting the entire way through, even when they're sitting there discussing the case at a desk. It's very exciting. But the movie itself, for me, is not really about the Zodiac killer, because the Zodiac killer, in the end, they don't solve it. The movie itself is about obsession, and there's a kind of a running theme through a lot of my top 5 this week is obsession. And you see these 3 guys and the toll that their obsession with the case takes, and the sacrifices they make in order to keep following the case, and how much they put into it over well over a decade of their lives. And guys lose their families, guys lose their health. And yeah, it's top-notch movie make. I'd actually say it's a perfect movie. And nobody could have directed this but David Fincher. If anyone likes this movie or hasn't seen this movie, they should watch this movie and then go and watch Mindhunter on Netflix right after, because it's also by David Fincher and is also incredible. So
Cool.
Yeah, that's Zodiac.
I like it. I've never finished that movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
So spoiler alert, they don't get it.
I saw it once in theater.
Yeah, I just spoiled it for you. Zodiac, they did not catch Zodiac at the end of it.
They don't
Yeah.
get him.
At the end of Titanic sinks.
Right.
Okay, hold on for my number
Wait,
one.
I know that's on somebody's list today.
I wondered if it could be.
I'm waiting for Fincher to direct Titanic, like a reboot, and then I'll.
Oh yeah,
Amazing.
whatever he does, man, I would watch. I don't care. Whatever he
Yes.
does. Yeah.
I love Zodiac. It fluctuates between number 1 and 2 on my like Fincher list, between Zodiac and 7. Any given day, either one of them can be number 1. I didn't put Zodiac on my list though, because I knew you would, and I didn't want to repeat a movie. So, yeah. Speaking, I love that movie. A friend of mine was obsessed with that story, like when she was a teenager. This is like almost 20 years ago, and she told me about it, and she's like, "Oh, that's interesting." And an A&E documentary came on later that week, and we watched that, and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing." And then I got her that book, the book you just had there, as a birthday present. And between the two of us, it's been a common interest and small field of study between the two of us. Zodiac killer stuff has been, like I said, a field of interest for a long time.
There's actually a documentary. It's on the Blu-ray, but it's also on YouTube right now. It's called "This Is the Zodiac." It's like 3 hours long, but it's packed. Like it's got everything you'll ever need to know about the case. And this is relatively true to the actual events. They kind of remove some stuff, add some stuff, but for the most part, it's pretty accurate. Like Fincher basically recreated whole crime scenes based on the reports, they actually interviewed some of the survivors and like recreated everything. The neighborhoods, they did a whole neighborhood on the soundstage. He put a ton of effort into this movie, and it shows.
Hard to believe it's your 5.
They had to replant. They had to replant trees that were torn down in the subsequent years in the specific locations just to get the authenticity.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's intense.
At some point you go, are you just being picky right now and just like spending the money because they gave it to you, or you know, or
he's all about accuracy, man.
Accuracy, unless that tree was, you know, very important in the plot. I don't see the point.
Well, you haven't watched the rest of it, so you'll find out.
Find out why the trees.
Very important. Those trees are there for a reason.
It's one of those things where after 2.5 hours, I was like, I don't know if I can be there for the next 3.
Well,
so
you've seen The Happening. Have you seen The Happening? Yeah, that's the trees. Yeah.
The Happening.
Yeah.
I haven't bothered.
Yeah, probably should.
Well, let's keep moving with number 5 for Mack Flash. Mike, what do you got for us at number 5?
My 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were Zodiac, and they talked about it completely. So,
all right, well,
we got nothing.
We can go to Scott. No, no. So I actually went the complete opposite way of these two guys. So all of my films, the common thread will be true crime because that's fascinated me always. So, but I went the opposite route in this with my number 5, true crime. Same director as Matt, but a little more lighthearted, if you will. Catch Me If You Can is my number 5. It's just it's funny. I've rewatched most of these films to prepare for this, just to be able to sort of talk on points. And that's the only one I didn't rewatch because I had seen it more often and more recently. And it's another one of those ones where if it's on TV or if I see it, you know, I was in a waiting room at a hospital recently, and it was on the TV in the waiting room, and I was just like, oh, I got to stay and watch the rest of this. It just it engrosses you, and it's just fascinating that this is a guy who was so good at what he did, right, in conning people, and being a doctor, being a pilot, all these things, and that eventually the FBI just said, oh, well, you're the best at this. Come work for us, and we'll help us get the other people. So that just is fascinating to me. So that I could watch over and over. That's why that's my 5.
I absolutely appreciate that because that is like one of my things where as a kid, the whole idea of like, I always loved the character who could be anyone in a whether I was watching Face on A-Team or like the guy being just anybody, just blending in and like conning people. I love that stuff. And so Catch Me If You Can. Yeah, it totally fits that.
DiCaprio, everyone loves DiCaprio, but for me, I find him he's supposed to be lovable, right? That's how you con people, but for me, he's the most lovable to me in that role, right? And it's him and Hanks, right? That kind of cat and mouse kind of thing. And then by the end, it's kind of like, oh, well, we appreciate each other. You know what I mean? That moment, almost like in Heat when you had, De Niro and Pacino there on the roof, kind of that like, okay, let's take this moment to realize what we're both doing here kind of thing, right?
I mean, DiCaprio, his character is always, he's like, his dad's gone. He's looking for another father figure. And he finds it in this guy, right? Who's like equally good in the opposite way. So it's a great movie.
It's a bit of a personal project for Steven Spielberg, I think, because before he made it big, he was still a student filmmaker. He would sneak his way onto Universal Studios lot so often that at a certain point, the security guard would just wave him by. He'd get in.
That's in the podcast too.
He would get in with a pass the first day, and then the second day say, "Oh, I forgot my pass. Don't worry, Steve. We know who you are." And he'd get in. Eventually, he found a building with an empty office, and he just built himself an office in the Universal lot. He was pretty much DiCaprio in the movie. He conned his way into the studio system.
So maybe Funke copied him. You're the Funke everyone's talking about.
That's what it comes from.
And the second part of that movie, Steven Spielberg, when he was a kid, his parents divorced and for a long time blamed his father. And you can see that in his movies. A lot of his movies have a father who's absent or disappears, or it's
walking.
Part of this, and walking would be that. But later in life, he found out it was his mom who actually cheated on his father, and to help keep his mother's, have her save face, the father said, "I'm going." He took all the blame, and Spielberg blamed him for a long time. And then he put that into Catch Me If You Can. DiCaprio walks in on his mom cheating on his dad with his best friend, which is what happened in Steven's life.
I thought it was about a con man.
Wow.
Sheesh.
Wow.
So-
I mean, it's intense now.
Different levels of true story. That movie.
I thought this was a lighthearted movie. I don't know. I got to read the order.
That's really great. Scott, you're up.
I'll
Top
add, I'll add
5.
my 2 cents on that in about 20 minutes. But we're going for my number 5. This was one that I honorable mentions worked its way on. It's a little bit more low key, and I'll talk about. I rewatched it again, and I'll talk about why it's a little more on a personal level for me. My number 5 is going to be 2003's Shattered Glass, which a lot of people haven't heard of. Has anyone here even heard of it? With Hayden Christensen.
Hayden Christensen.
Hayden Christensen.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Hayden Christensen can act. So Shattered Glass is a story about a New Republic reporter who in 1998 fabricated a ton of his stories. He made up everything. He made up sources. He made up events. He made up places. He made up all of it just so it sounded exciting because he wanted to fit in. He wanted to succeed and he wanted to excel. So what happens is the stories get so elaborate that other companies like Forbes and magazines are going, how do we not hear about this? How do we not hear about this hacker expo that went on in Silicon Valley? There was 1,000 people there and we didn't know about it. So they start investigating them. And it's very 2000, very discount all the President's Men and the fact that they're putting together the pieces and the walls are closing in on him. And I watched it when it came out. And I watched it again a couple years later, and I watched it again last night. And each time I get a little bit something more from it. And it's just, especially now, I work in a sales kind of setting, and it's very fast paced. And it's all about personal growth, and how you do depends upon yourself. And watching it again, I have been guilty. It's not by any means a confession of sorts, but I have been guilty of a lot of building kind of almost a house of cards where you're robbing from Peter to pay Paul and this, and you always have to stay one step ahead, kind of that Steven is in the movie. And you do it for personal acclaim, you do it for success, and you do it because you want to get ahead. And then as it's the movie, more so on a bigger scale for him, it starts falling apart. It's his steps on how he can stay ahead of it and cover up his trail. Like I said, it's just a very low-key independent film. It has a stellar cast. You can watch it. Rosario Dawson pops up. Peter Skarsgård is the editor. Hayden Christensen, Hank Azaria, Chloe Sevigny. There's a lot of like those 2000s indie style people in it. But again, just for being based on a true story, I'm trying to take movies that were little slices of events that didn't encompass a longer area. We'll get to one, but otherwise just small little life events. And this was one that I knew was going to be my honorable mention, but I wanted to talk about it a little more. So my 5 is Shattered Glass.
Huh. I like that. It sounds familiar. I think that once you started talking about the premise of it, I was like, yeah, I think I heard about this, but it does sound like an intriguing sort of like, I love that idea of like, it was based on like true events, but like one true event, like one moment. Here's the thing that happened that was unbelievable that otherwise you'd be like, no way. And they're like, yeah, that's why we made a movie about it. Because people always watch these movies and go, no way that happened for real. You're like, yeah, well, if we give you something that happened for real, that would not be an entertaining movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas this is an incredible story that actually happened. So we made it into a movie that just to recreate that feeling.
And
right?
it just encompasses probably about a week, 5 days. It starts up, it hits the ground running. You know exactly about Hayden's character. There's some flashbacks when he's in a classroom talking to his old class. But again, otherwise, it just encompasses almost a weekend where it all just, his house of cards he built just crumbles upon him. So it's a true story. And it's still in the news. So he pops up every so often. You can go back and read the articles he fabricated.
Wow. See, that's the power, because the power that they wield, and you go, you're actually in that position where you could fabricate anything you want if you could really back it up. It reminds me of The Wire and the guy in the last season of The Wire, or the second last season, who fabricates all the stories, but no one ever finds out, and he ends up getting awards for it and stuff. It's just so frustrating to watch. It's so frustrating to watch. Anyway, well, that brings it up to myself for my 5, and it was hard because I did that thing where I said I'm going to go from memory, then I'm going to look at the movies I own, then gradually widen the scope, and I ended up on that list that everyone was talking about, like go to the list of movies based on true events and read through it, and I found a bunch that I was like, oh yeah, I forgot this movie is based on true events. So it did shift a lot of things, but the one that kind of shifted the list a lot was a very recent movie that kind of marked an important time in comedy. A lot of people have been waiting for Eddie Murphy to come back to his roots and his style of comedy, and so Dolomite is my name.
Yes.
Is one of my favorites. I've watched it twice. Pretty much it came out, a few weeks went by, and then I was like, I'm gonna watch this, and it was my I call it my doing the dishes watch, because you know I can put my phone down. There's a little area where I can put my phone down while I do the dishes, and that's where I watch the stuff that doesn't require, you know, special effects and a big screen and whatnot. But once I started watching it doing the dishes, I was like, no, I gotta stop. I gotta watch this for real. And I sat down. I watched Dolomite Is My Name. It's just really great. It's to me, it's mostly the inspiring story of a guy who just had an idea of something unconventional, and he thought, hey, I'm gonna take this, I'm gonna do it. And people were like, I don't know, man. He's like, nah, I'm pretty sure I can make this work. And he kept going. I don't know if this sounds familiar to you guys, or if you see where I'm going with this parallel. But it's one of those things where it hit me really close to home, where I was like, yep, I totally understand where you're going for. Plus it was Eddie Murphy, you know, being back in his full form, and really enjoyed that movie. So Dolomite Is My Name. That's mine.
That's definitely one of my favorites from last year. It was great.
I have not seen it. It's one of those.
Definitely should. Yeah, it's great.
Well, it's on the big list. That's the problem with Netflix. My list keeps growing, and I can't catch up with it. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, make sure you do check it out, because it is a very, very good movie. It's well done. It's funny. It's poignant, and great performances by everybody in it, for sure. Yeah,
I wouldn't have pegged it as from what I was spotting, as a true story. So now I'm even more intrigued to go.
Oh yeah,
out,
definitely, definitely a true story based on a real person, and the story of perseverance. One of those. There you go. You know, against all odds.
And you can go back and watch all Rudy Ray Moore's movies too. He's got a whole ton of movies, including Dolomite.
Oh, it definitely makes me want to watch. I still haven't had a chance to sit down and watch those, but I cannot wait to watch like the actual movies that is based on. Yeah,
they're great. Actually, like there's most of them are okay, but Dolomite and a couple of the other ones are great. Like Dolomite is well worth checking out.
Cool,
for sure.
Gonna have to definitely do that. Anyway, that's my number 5. Moving on to the number 4 top true stories. Matthew.
I picked my number 4. I mean, obviously because I like the movie, but mainly I love the structure of the film, how the story is told. For my number 4, I picked Steve Jobs.
I wanted to.
Michael Fassbender starring as Steve Jobs, directed by Danny Boyle. And it's one of my favorite movies because it tells principally three stories of Steve Jobs rehearsing to speak to an audience first in the 80s about the Macintosh being released, and then later he's resigned from Apple and he's got his new computer program Next. He's going to present that to the crowd, and then later into the future, closer to our present, he's going to introduce the iMac, the nice, beautiful, colorful computers. And a lot of people talked about how a lot of people, in terms of the people who knew Steve Jobs, like Steve Wozniak, saw the movie and said, yeah, a lot of that did not happen. But that's one of the reasons why it's 4 and not like higher on the list, because based on a true story, yes, but a lot of people had issues with it. But yeah, so I put it there for the structure. I've always wanted to see more movies done like that. Tell a story, jump ahead a couple of years, tell a second part of that story, jump ahead a couple of years, tell a third part of that story, and to bring it back to Steven Spielberg again. I've always pictured a movie where him and George Lucas go to Hawaii and plot out the 3 Indiana Jones movies. 1, 2, 3. You go Raiders, Doom, Last Crusade, and you talk about how they put those together. I think it's just a great structure for how a true story can be told.
Yeah, I'll say about Jobs. You know much of a mark I am for Sorkin, and that's Sorkin's script all over it. And there is no movie that has perfected the walk and talk, much like West Wing. I have a West Wing pin on right now, and that movie is just 90% walk and talk and dialogue, and it's 20 minutes of monologue by Fassbender, and it's unbelievable.
I haven't seen it.
Oh,
that's all. That's my contribution. That's my contribution to that. I have not seen it.
I've seen it once in theater. Yeah, I saw it once in the theater. That was it. That was enough for me.
Well, they did another one around that same time, didn't they?
Yeah, 3 years before was the Kutcher, and then this one. So Kutcher was 13. This was 16.
It was just Jobs, right? Is this Jobs?
Yeah,
something like that.
And I was so glad that they didn't repeat a lot of things, because they also had that TV movie years ago.
Oh,
yeah.
That's of Silicon Valley, which is amazing. It talks about a story about Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and their parallel and their intersections with each other. But I think they did all of that. I think they retold that for the Ashton Kutcher movie. So it's like, well, I'll skip this. And Steve Jobs is a much better picture.
Gotcha. Well, that's the thing. I remember there being like multiple options and going, why is there really that much story to tell? So apparently there is, because we had to pick one of the movies.
Give me the hour-and-a-half Steve Jobs helps revive Pixar movie. I'll watch that. Give me that. I'll watch an hour-and-a-half on that. Yeah. Personal preference.
I love when there's like multiple movies about different periods of one person's life. So when they can take different periods of the same person's life divided up in like two different people. And I don't want to bring it up because I know one of a movie like that is coming up in my list, and I don't want to give it up in anybody else's list. So I'm not going to give the example now, but like that's another example of those cool structure things that you can do where people say, yeah, well, I focused on this part of his life. And then the other movie goes, yeah, well, I'm going to focus on this part of his life. Right. Sure. Yeah, those are kind of cool as well. AB, you're down for the number 4.
All right, my number 4 movie is from 1984, directed by Milos Forman. Won Best Picture at the time, and it is Amadeus.
Wow. Good movie.
When I was a little kid, I was obsessed with classical music. I loved Peter and the Wolf. I loved the Magic Flute from Mozart. And I was visiting my aunt with my mom, and they were talking, and they sat me down and put on this movie so I think I was about 9, and I could not stop watching it. My eyes were glued to the screen. I just eating it up. I loved every second of it. And a lot of it had to do with the music, but also just the stage productions they're putting on as it gets later on in the movie. But as I got older, I watched it again, and I realized that the movie is not about Mozart, and the main character isn't Mozart. The main character is his rival Solari, and that's who's telling the story. And as I'm watching it, I realized that he's not a reliable narrator, and that the stuff didn't necessarily happen. As I looked more into Mozart's life, I realized that a lot of the stuff wasn't true. It was based on a true story, and it's actually based on a play, Solari and Mozart. So it goes back to my last theme of obsession. It's about Solari's obsession with Mozart and trying to figure out why he is the genius that he is, and has this rivalry with him that Mozart is really unaware of. Mozart is so out of his league that he doesn't even realize that he's a rival to him. He's just like on another plane. And Solari is just trying to figure how to be like Mozart, loves Mozart, but also hates him at the same time. And you see him at the beginning of the movie telling the story at the end, and then throughout the life and different parts of his life where he is just trying to get to that genius level. And he, at the end of it, his conclusion is that he is the king of mediocrity. The Saint. Sorry, The Saint of Mediocrity. And I love it. I love it even more than I did when I was a kid.
Yeah, it's
for
a
obvious
great.
reasons.
I totally have to agree with you on that one. It's a great movie. I looked at it. I saw it on the list. I was like, eesh, it came close. It came close. Even fell off the honorable mentions, but definitely a great movie. A great movie. I love that one.
I do love the ending of that movie where you realize where Salieri is while he's telling that story.
Yes.
And it goes towards like, oh, you can't trust the thing this guy is saying at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then like I said, when I start diving when you start deep diving into Mozart's life, even the way Mozart died, he died in his home with his family around him.
Who killed him?
Salieri.
Salieri.
Salieri. Spoiler, no.
Spoiler, it was Salieri, man. Come on.
It'd be funny if Mike had it on True Crime and he's like Amadeus.
Let's keep this conversation going.
Episode of Law and Order. Okay, so my number 4 is actually surprising as far as a couple things. It's a pre-1980s film, because you'll notice most of my films will be 80s to now. I'm not a huge oldies kind of fan, if you will. This isn't even really an oldie, but it's also because of who stars in this, because you'd be hard pressed to find me enjoying a film by this gentleman, even though a lot of people do. But so it's 1979's Escape from Alcatraz with Clint Eastwood. And the reason this makes my list, I mean, obviously it's a great film, but the reason it made my list is years ago, I don't know, I must have been 1 a.m. I was up watching this, still living at my parents' house, and on History Channel, this was on. Like, I'm flipping through the channels and I see this, and I like a good, like crime as far as Prison Break or heist movie, bank heist, and Shawshank Redemption, of course. And this was on, and Clint Eastwood's in it, whatever. But they're on Alcatraz, right? So that's fascinating enough in and of itself, and the mystery of Alcatraz. And then you get to watching it, and it's just like, it's bare bones, exactly what it says it is. There's no extra fluff to it. It's literally it's him and a pair of brothers. So Frank Morris is who Clint Eastwood plays, and a pair of brothers that essentially say, we're getting out of here. And there is actually a couple other people that were supposed to go with them, but these 3 are the ones that got out. And the fascinating part about it is they got away. Like, I mean, no one really knows if they died on their escape in the water, but I've been reading about it and watching other documentaries and stuff, and there's supposedly some photos of the brothers in other places, and no one knows. They never contacted family or anything. So it's this big mystery, but it's just fascinating. And the thing I love about the film is probably what you would think I wouldn't love, because I'm not a fan of old films, but there are moments of just silence, just like while they're trying to crawl through the pipes and dig away at the little vent and everything, and it's just silence. They're not trying to fill that with noise and sound effects. There's just like whole minutes of just your little clink, and like a little mouse run by and stuff like that. And it captivates you, considering how it's just music and silence for most of the film. That's so awesome. I loved it. Yeah.
What year was that?
79. 1979.
79.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of older movies when people are like, you got to watch it. Like, it's old, but you're like, put yourself in the shoes of that. And they're like, I can't do it, man. It just it doesn't translate through my eyes. But 79, you start reaching that 80s sort of looking veneer, and you know what I mean? So yeah, I could see myself, and Clint Eastwood, of course, that definitely sells it for you, right?
Yeah, and apparently, because I'm not a huge Dirty Harry fan, same director has Dirty Harry, so there you go.
Hey,
they've done a lot. They've done a lot together. They've done a whole ton of movies.
I know. Yeah,
cool.
But it's really cool, and I feel like it's like it's like the Shawshank Redemption, but real, that kind of thing.
There you go.
It's on Netflix. It was trending for a while, a couple of weeks ago.
Was it? Oh,
and it's
really?
been on my watch list for 2 or 3 weeks.
Nice.
So I'm gonna have to throw that on.
We should have
it's an easy watch. It's an easy watch.
We should have an Escape from Alcatraz watch party.
Yeah,
I'm down.
Yeah, do that?
I'll bust in my
That's
VHS.
perfect.
Even though I have Netflix, I'll just pop in my VHS because I can.
Why not? Scott, give me your number 4. What's going on, buddy?
So my number 4, a movie that clawed its way on. One of my favorite things, aside from sports and movies, is politics. American presidents. I love it all. My number 4, 2008, Ron Howard, Frost Nixon. Yeah. And I rewatched Frost Nixon in preparation for this for the 3rd time, maybe 2nd and a half. That movie sings. Oh my God. That movie is 2 hours and 5 minutes. It feels like 30. I just love everything about that movie. I love David Frost is kind of a showboat entertainer. No one takes him serious. He's all about his celebrity. He gets the chance for an interview with Nixon. Nixon fallen from the offset of Watergate, and he's using it as a puff piece to enhance his image. And at the halfway point, when they finally do sit down for their interview, their 4-night interview session, Kevin Bacon equates it to like a boxing match. And that movie, the whole second act, third, that's all it is. It's a verbal sparring match between the two. And it's almost in the way you dive into each of their psyches and how they get psychologically where they want to go and how Nixon's using it and stalling to not get to the hard-hitting Watergate stuff. But Frost is playing tepid so he can hit him later, almost rope-a-dope style strategy. And then when he finally does, and you get to the last, and you get that really tearing down of Nixon as a politician to Nixon the man, it's incredible. I love that movie. That movie clawed its way on. It's my number 4, and probably one of my house is falling apart. One of my what is going on here? The storm is back just over this house. Truman Show. But that movie is by far one of my favorite, like, rewatchable films. So I love Frost Nixon.
I'm not attracted to political movies, especially when they're based on true stories, because I don't actually follow the politics, and it's hard to see. Yeah, right. It's hard to take an interest in something that you're not like. Here's a dramatic account of something that happened for real that you didn't care for when it happened for real. When you find out after the fact, you go, "Wow, well, that was a great movie, and that's incredible. That's a true story." So that makes you want to watch movies like this, where, you know, like, maybe it's just the way Scott has of describing movies that makes me really want to watch them, because my list so far is just all Scott movies.
And thank you. And you know what's
Scott's
perfect?
picks.
You talked about focusing on a certain event in different movies, and All the President's Men is great, but watching that followed up by this, and if you want to sneak in that Mark Felt movie with Liam Neeson that came out like 2 years ago, that is a perfect triple header to encompass the whole spanning era of Watergate. You get the investigation, the fallout, and then the little behind the scenes that encompass both. And I'm just saying, so there's multitude of movies that cover.
What about I Love Dick starring Kirsten Dunst? That would be
yeah.
You want to put that in there somewhere?
Summary. Cole's notes. The Cole's notes.
Okay.
That's kind of.
I don't know.
Well, that's great, and it's funny you bring that up, because my next pick is exactly what I was trying to say when I brought up that example, which was to capture two different periods of an event, or maybe of a person's life. And to me, this one is Boogie Nights. It says inspired by John Holmes, and everyone agrees that Boogie Nights is about John Holmes, right? And if you've seen
is that
yeah, that was the height, that's how big it's about
Wow.
That's what I'm getting at. Boogie Nights, whatever, regardless of the fact that it's based on a true story, is a great movie. I mean, it's just it's funny, it's sexy, it's got that rock and roll sort of
stellar
like
cast.
biopic,
Oh
stellar cast.
What a cast.
Just everything about that movie is great. Now, have you seen Wonderland?
Oh yeah, yep.
You know, with
that actually
with Val Kilmer,
actually,
right?
that actually is John Holmes. That is John Holmes' story.
That is exactly. That's John Holmes, the second half of his life. That's like after
he
pulls out his big gray
stuff.
Yeah, after he pulls out his big gray member at the end of the first movie, and then we get the other half of the movie, which is like the murders and stuff. So that's what I meant before, and that's exactly what you were saying, Scott, about the Nixon thing, where here's capturing different periods which are as incredible. It's like, well, if we were to write an entire movie, it would be wasteful. Let's make that 2 movies.
Okay, so my number 3 is on my list because of how long it is. And it's a great movie, but I like to put it on, clean the house, and then catch up, the middle. And then go and then do the dishes and catch the end.
I know what it is.
Oh, do you?
No, well, I know what it is.
No.
You go.
My number 3 is JFK.
Oh, no, it's not.
Back to the left.
Now I know what do you think it was?
I don't know.
I'm not gonna say it.
Like Scott, I'm a small, political buff. I like a lot of the movies about presidents and stuff, TV shows, but I also like legal dramas, trial movies. So this covers both those bases, mixed with the fact that this started. Well, it couldn't have started, but certainly exploded a whole group of conspiracy theorists as to who could come up with who shot Kennedy. Was it the lone gunman? How many people were involved? And so on and so forth. The movie's great. I love Kevin Costner in the movie. And if you watch any of the real footage of Jim Garrison, he might be harder to convince me. He didn't sound, too into what he was talking about, I don't think. But Kevin Costner's performance of Jim Garrison certainly put me over the top. I was like, oh yeah, I believe everything you're saying right now. This all makes sense.
How much I love JFK. I love it. It's a heavy watch.
To be continued.
Is it oh, see, I
kind of knew that was going to...
I know, and I wanted to put it. I just like 13 Days more. I like Parkland. I like Jackie. I like those Kennedy movies more than actually JFK. And I don't know if it's Oliver Stone, who's I had an Oliver Stone movie last week, but his style is not always you know what I mean? And it's that, and it doesn't always fit it for me. The smoky and whatever Tommy Lee Jones is doing, the nightclub stuff. And I'm just I don't know what all this is. But you're right. The second half on, when it's Costner doing the Warren Commission stuff, is awesome. And then the whole ending with the back and to the left is great. But yeah, that's another one. I mean, I never really went back to rewatch it, even though I love JFK and the Kennedy family. I'll just watch the Kennedys, that docu-series, and with Greg Kinnear and stuff way more than that. But great choice.
Well, okay, so JFK, that was Matthew's number 3. And obviously, I think we're going to be hearing about that a little later. AB, what you got coming up at number 3?
It won't be for me. My number 3 is from 1980, directed by my man, David Lynch. It is The Elephant Man. I just watched this again on Sunday because I hadn't seen it in a long time, and it hit me as hard as it did when I first watched it when I was younger. I've seen it a handful of times, and every time it gets me. It's a beautiful movie. It's filmed in black and white, but it's a gorgeous black and white. It's actually filmed in black and white and not filmed in color and then made into black and white, which apparently makes a difference. It's about a man who's born with a whole bunch of birth defects, and he has disfiguration of his head, and he has a bunch of tumors on his back, and he is found in a freak show being basically mistreated by his handler, and he gets come across by this doctor who's played by Anthony Hopkins, who plays a surgeon named Dr. Frederick Treves. And so he kind of rents him out from his handler to show to the medical world. And through that, he kind of has a little empathy for him and decides to bring him to the hospital he works at and kind of try and see what he can do for him. And they form this friendship, and through it, he finds out that not only is he not just a freak like he was in this movie, in the freak show. He's a man who loves reading, who loves loves art. He draws all kinds of beautiful pictures, and the hospital staff, get to know him, and through that it gets out, and people from all rich people, including like the Queen and movie stars, come and see him, and so you start to realize that this is a new freak show. It's just for rich people now instead of for the circus folk. And there's the big moment in it where he's being abused by a bunch of people who are just there to mock him, and he yells the line, I'm not an animal, I'm a man, I'm a human being. And you just see him change over the course of the movie, through the care and love shown by the hospital staff and through Dr. Treves. And it's heartbreaking. It's an absolute heartbreaking movie. It's like, I would definitely challenge anybody to watch it, just because it'll really open you up to that people with disabilities, they don't want our pity. They want to be treated normally, right? They want to be treated like a normal human being.
Yeah.
And they just need love. They need love and dignity. And it's powerful. It's a powerful movie. But anyway, yeah, Sunday I watched it at my parents' house. I was there visiting and watching in the afternoon, and I was a mess. So yeah, it gets me. Even after all these years.
It sounds like one of those premises for like a movie that you'd come up with just to be a tearjerker, and then when you realize that it's like, no, it's
a true story.
True story.
This man exists. Wow. Like, the man existed. The doctor existed. Yeah, it's an incredible story, and this man, like, you one of the things you also realize too, that this man's been mistreated his whole life. He's been mocked. He's been malnourished his whole life, and he still has this passion for life, this warmth and kindness, and you just realize that he shouldn't be like this. He shouldn't be compassionate and warm and loving and full of life after the life he's led, but he does, and it's incredible.
Yeah, perseverance, man. That's awesome. You need those movies. Mack Flash Mike, hit us with something lighthearted. Go.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you guys about a film you might not have heard of, from 1991 by Oliver Stone. It's called JFK.
What? The feel-good hit of the summer.
Yeah, and funnily enough, just another link here, again, also referenced in Seinfeld in a very hilarious scene.
No, I know that. Yeah,
that's one magic.
Is that the Keith Hernandez episode?
Yes.
Oh,
and funnily enough,
I know that
Wayne Knight is in both JFK
and
on Seinfeld. But anyways, that's just a little side note. All my best dramatic movies have to be in Seinfeld, or I don't watch them. So I won't say too much about this because Matt already talked about it. But I'm a huge conspiracy theorist guy, and JFK, I was obsessed with him for a long period of time. And just the way Oliver Stone does justice to the whole conspiracy concept of the CIA and the military complex, basically trying to throw in someone in there, get JFK out, throw in someone in there that will sort of supply their war, and because he was going to end Vietnam. And the way Donald Sutherland as X comes in, like, I could listen for an hour. I mean, that movie's like 3 hours and like 25 minutes long. Give me an hour of Donald Sutherland on the park bench talking to me sweet nothings about like CIA military conspiracies. Like, the way Stone shows sort of the what possibly could be happening, because that's what Sutherland's talking about, and he's going to the the black and white scenes of all the generals and admirals all talking and all this, and I'm just going, oh yeah, no, that's definitely true, absolutely, that happened for sure. Like, I'm just eating it up. Like, that I could watch all day long. And of course, Costner kills it in the courtroom. Probably one of my favorite Costner roles. I mean, Waterworld's pretty awesome, but probably one of my other favorite Costner roles for me. And then he kind of goes downhill, but JFK did feel like a long watch when I rewatched it, because I've seen it several times, and I rewatched it in preparation because it's been years. It did feel long, but when you kick it up to that courtroom scene, then you're just like, here we go. All right. And that goes really fast. So, but I couldn't not, that couldn't be omitted from my true story list.
Nice. Well, JFK for the second time. Scott, are you gonna do it?
Yeah, no. My number 3 did come up though. So I won't spend too much time. My number 3 is Catch Me If You Can. So when I said I was going to circle back, I almost didn't because I didn't want to put biopics, and I actually wrestled with the idea on if it was a biopic or not because it kind of encompasses a longer period of time. But same thing. I just wanted to. I figured the whole thing is the cat and mouse game and the chase and Hanks versus DiCaprio, so I put it on my list. But like Mike said, I was about 13 when this movie came out, so from the opening credits. I had not at that point seen a cooler movie. The opening credits are incredible. The way Spielberg does those with the music and the stick figures, I was all in on that. Then you get Walken's doing his thing and he's just cool and he's instilling the idea that you can use your charm and intellect to get what you want and get ahead and kind of the corrupted mentality that DiCaprio shows in it. But he does it with this boyish charm that you just can't help root for him. That scene when he's a pilot with the 8 girls is iconic. Him walking up. He looks like $1 trillion in that scene. And then as well as you go through the film and it's so cool. You get back to the final end when Hanks is just stressing himself out on how Frank Jr. cheated at the bar exam. And then you find out that Frank studied for 2 weeks and passed. So he has this God-given gift that he's been blessed with, and he uses it to get ahead. And then ultimately, it's exactly. He comes on and starts working for them because he's the best one at his position. It's better. He can do more good with us than against us. And again, the whole encompassing story of the father figure and the mutual respect that they have. It's with this sheen, this nice color, this fun paint. It's super bubbly, but I eat that movie up. So. That would be on the top of a lot of the people involved. It's right at the top on all of theirs. So yeah, definitely Catch Me If You Can is my number 3.
Nice. And so that's two JFKs, 2 Catch Me If You Cans.
Awesome.
I have a good feeling about a 3 for one of those 2. I don't know which one. We'll have to see, but not mine because my number 3, I have to tell you, unexpected, because after I had done my normal brainstorming and I went to the list, I started going through and I was like, oh yeah, this movie I forgot was based on a true story, and it is one of my favorite movies overall. I don't know much about the actual, true story behind it, but I know that visually the movie is very, very entertaining. The actor himself, is, known as a kind of a hit and miss sort of actor, where sometimes he does a really good one and then sometimes he does a really garbagey movie, and but this one happened to be a really good one. It had a really good supporting cast as well, and I'm talking about Lord of War. With
nice.
Nice. That movie is amazing, just visually pleasing as a movie. That somebody could have written that and made that up, and I would have been like, that's fine, I don't care. And it turns out, no, it's based on a true story, and the excitement and how you end up rooting for him. He's a bad guy. He's a terrible guy. But who doesn't like a good anti-hero story? And so to me, Lord of War fits in there at number 3. And it was one of those, I didn't think this movie would be on this list, but when I found it, it climbed its way up. Right there at number 3.
I like that. Movie. I like that movie for the same reason I like Thank You for Smoking. They both came out around the same time, but you take a very unlikable person using only his charm and his wit, representing a terrible industry, and you love him. So I remember those 2 movies. I might have come out like 2007, both the same year or whatever. But Nick Cage, great in that movie for sure, and great cast. Like Leto's his brother.
Leto,
one of the all-time greatest opening credit scenes ever.
The bullet,
the best. The bullet, it's the best. The life of a bullet.
Nick Cage's face. And all bullets too is awesome.
The poster with the bullets, it's so great. Well, that's why that's my number 3 true story movie. We're heading into the top 2 and heading into a record time here.
I don't want to say it, but
We can do this. Don't forget, everybody, to let us know, of course, in the comments what your top 5 true story movies. And I think this is why this is taking so long, is because these hit home, man. They're true stories. So let us know what yours are in the comments, of course. But let's hear about Matthew and his number 2 true stories movies.
Well, along with political films and legal dramas, courtroom dramas, I'm also a big fan of movies about the space program, as represented here. And
I didn't even think. Yeah, shoot.
And a lot
of
movies
top
about
5, and
of course,
I forgot about this movie.
This guy too. This
and
guy.
A lot of great movies about the space program have been released, true or untrue. A great one is The Right Stuff, but I don't think there was another great one until this one. It stars Gary Sinise and 3 other guys.
Stop billing.
Stop billing Gary Sinise.
Gary Sinise, baby.
Apollo 13 is my number 2. I watched it again last night. I watched it a few months ago. I love this movie. What I like about it particularly is like after seeing the movie, I do research, and then researching this, you realize a lot of the dialogue between the astronauts and Houston is recorded transcripts. So they tried to keep to the exact wording as best they could. Another part I like is after the spacecraft explodes, there's a combustion and they go floating off into space. You see Ed Harris giving controls over to I forget what his name is. He played the older brother in Back to the Future. Mark McClure plays another flight director. And
You're Troy.
Huh?
You're thinking of Troy McClure.
No, Mark McClure is his name. And in the midst of this, the scene or the situation where everyone should be paying attention, and Ed Harris is a name, you'd think he'd be in the movie the whole time in the flight director seat, but he hands off the reins to Mark McClure for a very pivotal moment in the movie, which happened in real life. There was kind of like a shift change, which they decided to keep as part of, based on a true story. This is what happened. We can't ignore the work of everyone to get these people back to Earth. So we have to represent them as best we could.
Wow. They really,
awesome.
It's one of those like James Cameron and the Titanic going really down in there, and you're like, well, we need a real life model of what the Titanic looks like. Let's go scan it. Well, we have these plans. We're like, no. Let's go down there.
He pulls a Thanos. I'll do it myself.
Yeah, I'll do it myself.
I'll do it myself.
Yeah. Wow,
that's great. I love. Yeah, same thing as I knew you loved it, and I just rewatched it again because I saw it as a kid, and then you always talk about it, so I rewatched it like at the theater when I worked at the movie theater like 2 years ago. Awesome. So underrated. Like people talk the line, but that whole movie is incredible.
It was up against Braveheart for Best Picture, another based on a true story movie, and Braveheart won, obviously, but it was. Well, I guess I didn't have a point to that. Just wanted to bring it up.
That's all
you just wanted to show how bitter you were that you lost against
Braveheart. To continue that story, Brian Grazer thought he was going to win. He thought they were going to win Best Picture. They were going to beat Braveheart. Braveheart wins. Mel Gibson gets his Oscar. Years later, Ron Howard and Brian Grazer are nominated again for A Beautiful Mind. And who presents them the award is Mel Gibson. He's going to read off the names for Best Picture. And so they open the envelope. Brian Grazer, Ron Howard for A Beautiful Mind. Brian Grazer, he runs up to the stage. He wants to make sure that his name is actually on the envelope, because knowing Mel Gibson, he would have just said, his name, just be like, yeah, I beat you last time. Here, I'm going to give it to you this time.
That's hilarious. All right, let's take a look at AB's number 2. Following that, let's see what you've got in store for us.
Okay, this is my most loosely based movie on a true story.
Number Number
Yes,
two is your most loosely based.
Yes, it is. At the beginning of the movie, it says that it is 100% a true story. It is actually only based loosely on a couple of cases of one particular killer. And that would be the 1974 movie directed by Tobe Hooper. It is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
That's something else.
Texas
funny.
Chainsaw Massacre is one of my all-time favorite horror movies. I had to shoehorn it in here because I could. It's phenomenal. It still holds up. It's still gritty. It is still grimy. There's pretty much nothing like it. When it came out in 1974, people lost their minds and were like puking in the aisles. And the legend of it grew more than the actual movie itself. The legend of how gruesome and bloody and gory it was. When you actually watch it, it's one of the least gory movies you'll ever see. There's pretty much no blood in it. You don't see anyone really get chainsaw. It's all done shot the way that it's shot. Makes you think that you saw things that you didn't. And so when they cut away, they kind of insinuate certain things, and your mind just takes you there. So all these people are like, "Oh man, this is the most goriest movie I've ever seen," when it's really not. It's just the legend of that, which I think is incredible. And it was basically made on a shoestring budget, made a ton of money just based. Once the word of mouth got out, it blew up, and everyone had to go see it. And yeah, it's fantastic.
I think half of its scariness and is the grittiness of how he filmed it. It looks so dirty.
And that house, just the house itself almost as a character is scary. The bones and like the just the grime and dirt in the house and it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
I had a feeling that would make your list. I actually thought of Matt's and your number twos. I didn't think they would be your number twos, but those two I had you pegged for. Yeah.
I thought you would have like Manhunter or something. I thought when you were saying, I thought Silence maybe was based on a true cannibal story.
No, those aren't true stories.
So Texas Chainsaw Massacre, right?
Enough shoehorn you could get.
Ed Gein.
Ed Gein is the killer. Ed Gein. Two of the cases of Ed Gein were what it was based on. I think just cannibalism. And
did you like that
very
movie,
loose.
Extremely Wicked? Did you?
I never watched it.
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna rewatch it to try and get it on my honorables, but I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't really care about it.
Shoehorn that in there. Just squeeze it in there.
Yeah, I want to see if I liked it as much.
All right. So I went for number two. I went Foreign because this film had such a impact on me the first time I watched it. There's actually somewhat of a sequel to this, but this film is from 2002. It's from Brazil, and it's called City of God.
Nice.
And it's super high on the IMDb.
It is talk about gritty, like it's the real deal. Like it's filmed in the, I can pronounce this right, the favelas, I think I'm pronouncing it right, the slums outside of Rio de Janeiro, basically the spots that you don't see as a tourist, the spots they try to hide away. And it's essentially almost like a entirely child actor film. But they're all just with guns shooting each other up. It's basically the story of two gangs going at it, fighting for territory. At the same time, though, it's the story of two kids, one who wants to go a different route and wants to be a photographer and document the things that are going on. And one wants to be the biggest crime boss in the area. And it is intense. Like the scenes, the things like kids getting shot, things that you can't kind of unsee. And so I rewatched it, and it was just as powerful. The sequel is pretty good too. It's called City of Men, and they even did like a few seasons of a show over in Brazil too, called City of Men. And then I watched, there was a documentary they did after it with all of the actors, and I didn't realize this, but almost all of the actors in it, and maybe all of them, are kids just from those slum areas, and most of them, they're still there. Like, it's crazy to watch this. They did this thing got huge traction. It went to Cannes. It did all of these things, and most of them are still there, just sort of scrounging to get by. A couple of them got into soap operas and things like that. But I was just like, wow. So they just pulled them off the streets, gave them a few hundred, whatever, the monetary amount is there, and said, here, do this, take some guns, we'll do some acting with you, and go. So it's impactful though. Like it shakes you to your core that this is what's going on somewhere, you know, especially so close to a huge tourist destination, right? So
the contrast of the different lifestyles, right there in your face, right? Insane.
When I was doing my top 250 on IMDb, that movie's like, I don't know if it's still that high, but it was like number 6. It was like a 9.1 for the longest time, like 10 years ago. Fantastic. It's always held in high esteem.
That's crazy. All right, Scott, what do you got for number 2 in your
high esteem? I got a Best Picture winner coming right here. So there are 4 men in Hollywood that I hold on a pedestal unlike no other. To me, they've never done a bad movie. I watch them outside of films. I watch their interviews, and I if their name's on the poster, I'm going to see it. And it's Will Smith, it's Tom Cruise, it's Matt Damon, and it's Ben Affleck. And I rode the wave of 2012's Best Picture winner, Argo. My number 2. I love that movie. That movie, when that came out and you see the story, and a lot of people didn't like, and the Hollywood part of it, and they're just like, oh, Hollywood's just rewarding this movie because Hollywood's the heroes. Awesome. Don't care. Goodman was John Chambers throwing out great lines about, hey, can you make me be a producer? We can have a trained monkey to be a producer. You want to come to Hollywood and do nothing and act like a big shot? You'll fit right in. I love the snark dialogue of it. The fact that they go to Iran, there's this story going on, political undertones, Canada's coming in, how he's getting them out, filming the fake movie. It's incredible. It's a great movie. I was also more so into it just because Ben's my guy. This was Ben's comeback tour. He got snubbed for Best Director, didn't even get nominated, but it wins Best Picture. I just loved it all. Again, going back of the list, this and my number 1 are probably the most rewatchables. When I had said that Frost Nixon was 2, this is right up there in the fact that it's like 210. And when you watch it, for me, it feels like 30 minutes. It feels like an episode of a show. Just how you get from point A to B, the cast, everyone involved. Cranston is this guy back there. Alan Alda, a great turn as the other Hollywood producer, and all like the little nods and nuances to Hollywood as well. But then you get the really tense third act as they try to escape. It's just incredible. So, and that was a true story. It was held off until Clinton, I think, made it public in like 97 or something. And then you get the movie years later. So for me, my number 2 is Argo.
Nice. I've always wanted to see it, never seen it.
Really? Wow. That's one I'm going to say you will love.
Well, even just for the Canadian content of it and what you find out about that, it's pretty fascinating to watch.
Despite them like downplaying it, like Canada plays way more involved in it.
But the great stuff.
Yeah, you go.
Oh, I was going to say, but there's little things. There's little things. Argo, fuck yourself. There's little things in it, like the fact that he cast Victor Garber, who was his children's godfather, because he's so close to his wife at the time, Jennifer Garner. You got a Canadian in that role.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That was great.
That was great. This movie's awesome. Ben's the man. Ben looks great with a beard. He's rocking shit in those suits. Let's go, Ben. And then he wins the Oscar, and I'm like, everyone.
Here's the bomb in Phantom, yo.
Yeah, everyone loves Ben again, and I'm like, he never left. He's been consistently amazing. He never had a valley, only peaks.
Wow.
So for me, only peaks.
Only
so for me,
peaks.
Argo coming out, I ate it all up.
There have been 3 times where I was able to pick the Best Picture winner just based on the trailer. I saw a trailer.
That's my favorite trailer of all time. The Dream on Aerosmith. I watched that trailer again today, and I'm just like, God damn, this trailer is incredible. That's my favorite cut trailer of all time.
And it was because I saw the movie. I was like, oh, okay. Hollywood loves movies about Hollywood.
They sure do.
Best Picture.
I love it. And I love that. I love that Hollywood was the hero. And I was like, yeah, sometimes it's fine for Hollywood to pat itself on the back. I'm down with this.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to have to check that one out.
Argo more so than the others, definitely.
My number 2 coming right up is one that's been said a few times before, as a matter of fact, but I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed everying you guys had to say about it. Most definitely, it is Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah, of course.
No,
because you said he hadn't seen it.
I know. I'm just joking.
Awesome. Leo.
No. I love Catch Me If You Can. I love Leonardo DiCaprio in it. I love Christopher Walken in the beginning. I love the entire idea. I love Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks, of course, like he can't go wrong. And the whole, idea, as I said, of being able to play whatever role you want, and play it to perfection and be confident enough to say, I could do this. It's one of those things where, I think every young man imagines himself at one point thinking, yeah, I could probably do that. I could probably pull that off. You know what I mean? You watch that movie and you go, yeah, I could do it. I could be a pilot. I'm pretty sure I could fake it. And so that's why I like that movie so much.
Yeah.
We like to talk about the 3 movies that almost made the list. No explanations, no descriptions, no chit chat. Top 3 honorable mentions. What do you got, Matt?
Number 3, Elvis and Nixon. Number 2, Zodiac. And number 1, Dog Day Afternoon.
Oh, that's a good one. AB.
So we got 300. We got Spotlight.
Yeah.
And we have Braveheart.
Oh. You're sure about that one?
I don't know how historically accurate. No.
We just got all our Braveheart talk out.
Yeah.
So in no particular order: Schindler's List, Casino, Ed Wood.
Nice.
Casino.
Great.
Casino. Good one.
My 3: American Hustle from Scorsese Light, David O. Russell, The Untouchables, and the one that by a hair I had to cut out. It's an HBO film called Game Change about the 2008 election. You guys know that? The Republican side with Woody and Ed Harris plays John McCain.
And Julianne Moore.
Julianne Moore is scintillating as Sarah Palin in that movie. I just rewatched it for it. I wanted to, just by a hair.
That's great. My 3 honorable mentions, funny enough, A Beautiful Mind, American Hustle as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And a tie between Sid and Nancy and The Doors.
Oh, Sid and Nancy is so good.
Yeah.
I had that one up and I was like, oh man, I kind of want to put that on their list, but I couldn't.
I'm not saying they're equal as movies. I'm just saying they are equally, awesome. Awesome in their scope.
Equally not good enough to be your top 5.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Speaking of which, let's take a look at the number 1 pick based on a true story. True Stories number 1. Matthew, what do you got?
Another field of interest of mine is the royal family. And my number 1 is The King's Speech. It was my favorite. It's a real tough one to call it my favorite movie of that year because it was also the same year Inception came out. So they are always fighting for a number 1 of that year. But I saw The King's Speech twice in the theater, and it was one of my favorite memories of a theater going experience because as I was leaving, there were 2 elderly ladies walking in front of me who probably lived during The King's Speech, heard it on the radio. Because they had one of them had a Scottish accent, and it was hilarious. It made me laugh for the rest of the day. She said something along the lines of, "Oh, I remember that troubling times." I was just like, oh, I love it. But
troubling times.
The movie itself is amazing, but what goes along with it is, I don't think there's going to be any stopping of films made about the royal family. It came after The Queen, which is amazing, and it came before The Crown on Netflix, which I can't get enough of. One scene in King's Speech that there's my favorite line and my favorite scene is when they're sitting, the family is sitting and they're watching the coronation in their screening room, and after they watch that, the newsreel kicks in and they talk about Hitler moving further into Europe. And he's shouting in German. And one of the princesses turns to the king and he says, "Father, what is he saying?" And he's like, he says, "I don't know, but he's saying it very well." And it's really a powerful statement because King George VI, obviously, I mean, the whole movie is about him overcoming or doing his best to overcome a stutter. He can't talk in public. So at a certain point in Europe's history, there would have been a time where which of these two rulers sounds more confident in their ruling. Thankfully, the good guys won World War II, and we're not, under that kind of tyranny. It's number one for so many reasons, most of which I can't express. We're running short on time. I'm just going to move on. I love the movie so much.
Apparently it's a good movie. Yeah.
Is this one of those ones where we've had this conversation before, and I watched it, and that was the only time I need to watch it. I don't know. I just can't.
Same.
But I love. But I will say I love, because we have this, and you talk about it a lot, and I love how much you love it. And that's great. And it's great. It's great. But it's and I get it told its story the way it needed to perfectly. But I'm just I can't, it doesn't have replayability for me. Maybe it's just I don't have that link to that moment or to that, you know what I mean? But that I always, that movie will forever be ingrained with you. King's Speech, that's Matt's movie.
In the Oscars, it won best actor, best director, best picture. It also won best original screenplay, which didn't make sense to me because it's based on a true story. You're adapting it from at least a book or history or whatever. And that's the one the biggest one I disagree with, because I thought Inception was the most original movie of that year and should have won that Oscar.
Of course.
That's the only black mark I have for that.
Well, black marks aside, it was a good pick. Let's take a look at AB's number one true story movie.
Okay, there was pretty much no doubt that this was going to be number one for me when I was looking at the list. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It might even be top 10 movie for me all time. It's 2000, directed from the year 2000, directed by Cameron Crowe, and it is Almost Famous.
Oh, so close.
Figured.
And so I knew that it was semi-autobiographical. He wrote it as well, Cameron Crowe, and he wrote it about his life. Him being on the road with bands when he was 16 years old, writing for Rolling Stone, and kind of conning his way into that job, and following these bands and getting partying with these bands. I doing a little research into the movie, come to find out that pretty much 80% of this movie, it's not just based on a true story. It's 80% of this movie actually happened. It didn't all happen on the same tour. It was kind of an amalgamation of all of his experiences on tour with a bunch of different bands. But 80% of this stuff actually happened, including the plane incident, the partying with the Band-Aids or whatever they're called. There's him accidentally meeting his sister in the airport. That actually happened. There's so much of this movie that actually happened. I was like, this is incredible that all these things happen. But this movie is about the music, and what it comes down to is how music can change people's lives and bring people together. And even when people absolutely can't stand each other, there's the iconic scene on the bus with Tiny Dancer. They're finished basically telling each other how much they hate each other, and somebody starts playing some music and they just get into it, and all of a sudden it's all okay again because of the music. And I'm a huge music guy. The movie is all about music, so I just want to say how much do I love Almost Famous? Well, what do I love about Almost Famous? Well, to start with, pretty much everything. I love this movie. It's great.
It's a good movie. It's a really good movie.
It's my favorite Crow is Maguire, but that's easily as bad. That's his most polished film, no doubt, beginning to end.
Yeah.
The stuff with him and Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Lester Banks.
It's great stuff going through, and then you get the back. Oh, it's awesome.
You start going,
right? Is he?
Yep. Jason Lee is the lead singer of the band. You start going through that cast; it's unbelievable. Rainn Wilson, Jay Baruchel.
Who else is in the band? I'm thinking of another big name.
Billy Crudup.
Billy Crudup is the main guy. Yeah, Billy Crudup's the main guy from the band. But the cast is crazy good. And shout out to Frances McDormand, who plays his mom, who is incredible. She's incredible in pretty much everything she's in, but she's awesome as the mom.
when she does the thing with the Simon and Garfunkel album, and she's like, "These
they're
eyes,
on drugs.
these eyes, they're on drugs." That whole part.
Well, even the stuff about his family life, all the stuff about his family life, he wasn't allowed to listen to rock and roll as a kid. His mom and sister had a huge falling out. Like, it's all true. It's like everything in there is really happened to him growing up.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, no, it's a great movie. I looked at it. I thought of putting it on my list, but who knows? I still got number one coming up. Who knows? Mike, what do you got coming up?
All right, there's no doubt my number one was going to be 1990s Goodfellas.
Yeah.
Oh,
Knew that one.
No doubt. Casino made my honorable mention. Goodfellas was going to be number one. Goodfellas is what made me fall in love with Robert De Niro. And then Casino is where that was his vehicle, right? But Jimmy Conway, like I know that Goodfellas is about Henry Hill and Ray Liotta plays Henry Hill, but man, Jimmy Conway, De Niro's role takes the whole thing for me. Just like I couldn't get enough of him. Then that's when I started going back and watching all his other things, right? When Henry Hill, Ray Liotta, well, I guess it's the younger version of him, gets arrested the first time and he's in court and he's all nervous that Jimmy Conway's going to be mad. And he says, no, good job. You did it right. And then he said, there's two rules. You never rat on your friends and you always keep your mouth shut. Like when he delivers those lines and I'm just like, oh, this guy is meant to be a mobster. And that's why he's done so many films like that. Right. But that whole movie and then finding out that was essentially a true story and a book that, Henry Hill had written and, fascinated me, and I rewatched that over and over. So there was no doubt that was my number one.
Yeah, definitely an amazing movie. Scorsese, like at its finest, right there, for sure.
And that's talking about quick watches. That's a quick watch. But you know what's funny? I had watched it on a DVD. I do not have this on Blu-ray. It's two-sided. I thought it was widescreen and full screen like normal. Nope, halfway through,
flip disc over.
Unbelievable! I didn't know that.
Yeah,
flip it over and it keeps going. I'm like, this is amazing because I had it on VHS when I first. Anyways,
yeah, that was two tapes.
I'm a big Tommy DeVito guy above all that.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, he's amazing in it too. But yeah.
Great movie. Scott, what do you got coming in at number one?
So, like Mike, my number one, as soon as you said it, I was like, well, I know what number one is, and we'll go through the rest. And Matt and I can have a conversation off screen because his film beat my film for the 2011 Best Picture. But mine is a movie that taught me that you don't get to 500 million friends without making a few enemies.
Nice.
And my number one is 2010's masterpiece, David Fincher directed, written by Aaron Sorkin, The Social Network. And for me, I saw The Social Network 3 times in theaters, and it's something like I just ate up the scenes, the dialogue, everything from the word go. That movie, as we've talked off camera, that movie has such a weird style, and you get the Trent Reznor music and the look, and it's really smoggy and everything, and you're like, oh my God, is this Harvard? And is this what's going on? Is this what Rowing Crew looks like? And then just the whip snap dialogue, Armie Hammer's debut, Eisenberg. Eisenberg's the world orbits Jesse Eisenberg in that film, and say what you will, the rest of his stuff, and he's still playing that kind of character, and whatever he does, he was born to play Mark Zuckerberg and spew those lines and that dialogue in that film. And as well, outside of the movie, I'm a monster Justin Timberlake fan. So you see Timberlake come in and he's dialed kind of back a bit, but playing a swarmy kind of D-bag fits his character. He's perfect as Sean Parker. So again, going through the film, the dialogue, the story, taking something... For me, it's a perfect based on a true event because you're taking that one little thing. Everyone has Facebook. Everyone had Facebook. It was the biggest thing in the world at the time. How are we going to do a movie on this? But getting the actual story and the courtroom and the proceedings and just kind of the deteriorating of their friendship and what money and power can do to these people and how they want to achieve more and get ahead. It's just an incredible little microcosm of society. And watching that as a film, I'm like, this is an unrivaled masterpiece. It's one of the best films of the decade, one of my favorites of all time. So for me, I knew immediately my number one was Social Network. And it's funny that Matt says why the King's Speech was for original, And I wouldn't be surprised if they were like, we got to get the F out of Aaron Sorkin's way, because for me, I love that that's the movie that got Aaron Sorkin his Oscar as well too. So maybe they moved categories because they knew, but Sorkin winning for that, that for me, I like even more than if Social Network won Best Picture, because I'm more of a Sorkin guy. But him winning an Oscar for it, that's just the cherry on top of why I love that film.
That's awesome.
I love me too.
That's great. It's great. It's phenomenal. And Quentin Tarantino said, what didn't he say? It was like the best movie of the last 20 years. It's like he said of the last 20 years, Social Network's his favorite film. So,
plus he's got one guy playing twins, which I absolutely love in a movie.
The
When
special
one actor plays
amazing.
twins, I love that.
like me, and I'm just going to say what everyone else thought. When I saw it, no one knew who Armie Hammer was. And I assumed they just got the same, like twin brothers to play those roles. But the other guy was Josh Peck or Josh Pence or something. And they dub him out. And it's just Armie Hammer delivering the same lines twice. It's unbelievable. You don't know that. And this is like 11 years ago. Unbelievable. It's still better than some of the stuff you got now.
It's well done. Well done.
Very.
Well, it comes down to this. My number one, as always, it does, as anticlimactic as it might be. It is a great movie. It is a great movie, as you said, and it is based on a true story that was written as a book that I have read, as a matter of fact, which in itself should speak volumes. I read a book. But this movie you can put on, and it's a long movie, but as Mike put it, it is a short watch. It's great to watch just to put on in the background if you want to cook some food and you want to just cook some good food and listen to something. If you want to watch about 7 different stories in one movie, you watch Goodfellas. That's what it is for sure. Goodfellas is a great movie in itself from beginning to end. It's one of those things where a lot of biographies or true stories are moments, so it's very flash in the pan, whereas this covers a span from a boy's life until a grown adult, not just an adult, a grown adult, and how far that life took him, and everyone in that environment around him, and how it changed as well. And you get to see the progression of the time and how the organization stayed the same but adapted, and everything about the Goodfellas. It's just a great movie, and the fact that it's based on a true story, again, mind-blowing, just crazy.
Fantastic pick.
Awesome.
There you have it. Yeah, boom.
I dig it.
Well, there you have it, everybody. That is the Mack Flash 5 for this week. And I got to say, the reactions in the room were weird and odd, because I think it all comes down to the type of true stories you're attracted to. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so some of us shared, other ones, we seem to be alone in the group saying, well, yep, that's it. That's the one. And you're like, okay. A lot of people were like, all right. But, let us know what your top 5 were in the comments, because we're always curious. There's a lot in the last one, right, guys? The sports ones. There's a lot of movies that came up. They're like, yeah, I can't believe we didn't talk about Cool Runnings.
Or
someone said Concussion, and I regret leaving Concussion off.
Yeah.
Tell the truth.
One that didn't make the show, and I haven't seen in the comments yet, Caddyshack.
Oh yeah.
Thank you very little.
Sure.
Well, there you have it. So make sure you do leave your top 5 in the comment, and do tune in, of course, for the corresponding quiz that has to do with our top 5s. Each of our top 5s will be represented, so there's going to be at least 2 questions about Goodfellas. How many questions about Catch Me If You Can?
Like
oh my god!
About Catch Me If You Can.
Yeah. To Catch Me If You Can, Quickie.
That's right. And then we'll see you next week.
What's topic?
What's the pick? You're picking.
It's me. It's
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
All right. So I was a little shocked before the show, because we're like, it's my turn. I was like, what?
But we had 4.5 hours when
I have
when
it.
we
I have
told
it.
you to decide.
I'm gonna use the very vague topic, and it's a little vulgar, so I'm sorry about that. But it's gonna be the your top 5 mindfuck movies.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, you all got exactly what I'm talking about. No specifying. No, do you mean this? Do you mean that? I mean a movie that you watched and you went, wow, that just messed with my mind.
Finchers, so that's
Which means now, if I'm gonna want to redo them, I got to do 5 of those, and just my head's going to explode before next week. Thanks.
Next week it's the Mack Flash 4. Mike just died.
Headless Mike. Headless
right.
Mike will make an appearance.
And
thank you very much, everybody, for Matt, go ahead.
No, and the sound you just made, that fwah, that's a sound that will appear in many of the trailers for these movies, I think.
Oh yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
Doing most
That Inception noise.
That's right.
All right, everybody. Thank you very much. Thanks for being part of the Mack Flash 5 guys. You guys have a great evening. Those are great. And we'll catch you next time on the Mack Flash 5. Bye, everybody.